Hey, this is Coach and Dorr with Tactical Hyve. In today's video, we're going to be covering med gear, not how to use it, but how it's carried and why we carry it that way.
And I'll go over a little bit of the history from Vietnam up until the GWAT. Now, I'm not old enough to be in Vietnam, but gear didn't change that much between 1966 and when I started my career in 1986. So the gear's about the same, and we'll go over it here. Okay, so starting back in Vietnam era gear, all right, which was, again, the same thing we were using when I started my career. This is set up, you can tell it's old because you got the old, clinky buckles and all that stuff, all these pouches. Yep, tape them up, all good. But Vietnam was a fairly wet area, so we want to keep our stuff dry. Now, again, this is before my time, but that's how it was set up. And you had a really simple kit, and it was just kept up here on your suspenders in the futile attempt to keep the damn thing dry, because these little bags, they were supposedly waterproof, but nobody ever trusted them. And honestly, that was the same thing we had in the 80s as well. A lot of guys would take a hat like this, you got your cool tiger stripes, and they would sew a pocket underneath here, right? And that would just be for a pressure dressing or whatever, something that they would keep dry because, well, you get your head, try and keep your head above water most of the time. And guys end up just putting a pack of cigarettes in there anyhow. And then, so this now moves into my era. You had this cool little med pack here. And it's got your Alice clips, and it was always worn right there in the small of the back. Platoon SOPs, that's where your med kit was. It's got it's a case with just this plastic, non-waterproof, whatever, generic med kit with everything from Band-Aids to pressure dressings. And it was not the best thing, but it was what we had at the time. Anyway, so some smart guys, SEALs, SF guys, I know SEALs, real innovative, and they're always looking for, hey, what else can I do? How can I make this better? And this was obviously not optimum. So some smart guys got together and figured, okay, what's the best bang for the buck that we can get in here? So they set up, our corpsmen got together and said, hey, this is what you need. They went through the stuff and they put it in a bag, and it's, what do you know, about the same size as that cargo pocket. So we would drop this in, the platoon SOP was then drop this in your cargo pocket, and this is actually one that was, I threw this in a bag. It's been bagged up since about the late 90s sometime. And anyway, so this would just drop into your cargo pocket on your firearm side, secondary. So the secondary, the leg strap would go to the top. You had that pouch there, that pocket, but you couldn't really get into it because it was covered. So this was the perfect place to drop this in, and then if you got dinged, your buddy would come, he knew right where to go for the med kit. There were no tourniquets in this, and tourniquets came out a bit, we started getting better, more effective tourniquets as we entered the GWAT.
After the late 90s and the mid 2000s, when I started going to work, we were still putting this cargo pocket size plastic bag in our cargo pocket. Again, the SOP of running it underneath your holster, because everybody was running these big drop legs back then, was the SOP. If somebody got hit in the dark, whatever, get them to cover, find their pistol, unclip their thigh strap, and dig out their blowout kit. At around that time, as I was coming in, we were 1 tourniquet per guy until we got overseas, and it quickly became 2 tourniquets per guy. And believe it or not, the main method for attaching tourniquets to your kit was rubber bands. You have an unlimited supply of rubber bands in the military, and guys were just girth hitching these through their molly and just sticking them onto plate carriers, belts, whatever. Guys were putting them on their rifles. Guys were putting them on their helmets. There really was no set pattern or precedent. You were just told, hey, figure out where to put 2 of these. You figured out very quickly that they needed to be, you need to be able to get to one with each hand. So you had to have one on the right side, one on the left side.
Because you were expected to apply that tourniquet yourself. That was your initial, you go self-aid, buddy aid, and then get the corpsman involved. So the tourniquet was the first thing. Since you got the body armor on, the heart and lung hits were less. And so most of the battlefield casualties that guys were dying were bleeding out. So tourniquets were that's, first of all, it used to be airway, breathing, circulation. Now, stop the bleed first, then worry about whether the guy can breathe or not.
Yeah. Not long after the plastic bag method made it to me, we started getting issued outer bags, with zippers. They were still vacuum sealed, but you could stick other things in there. This one has a couple tourniquets in it. I would never keep 2 tourniquets in the same place, but it was an option. We started getting issued pouches specifically made for tourniquets. Great idea. Nobody used them, but good idea.
Weight, man. That thing weighs at least an ounce.
Also, same thing with the blowout kits. This one has a handy dandy pull strap. It's got everything you need in there. It has molly. It looks great. Nobody used them. It wasn't until ding, 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 this came out. All right, so this is a on belt or molly pouch that a blowout kit smaller than this one. It's still vacuum sealed will fit into. These are designed to be run in the small of the back. Here's one on a pistol belt. Big takeaways are the cross goes on the top, the pull tab goes on the bottom because of economy of motion. This thing's in the small of your back. You want to be able to reach back again with either hand in case one of them's injured. Yank on this and pull your blowout kit out. I have a tourniquet in a pouch ready to go on this one. It is on my right side, which means somewhere on my left side I would have a second tourniquet. This is a much more modern setup. I wore this in the 2010s. I also am a big fan of putting a tourniquet in one of my ankle pouches on my pants, and then I just have some combat gauze quick clot that I put in the other one. If you're doing anything, you're probably wearing pants, at least you'll have this. That's kind of the way I looked at it. Last but not least is a more modern method. It's definitely been around for over a decade. The behind the plate carrier med pouch. I personally was never a fan of this one. Anything that made my kit bulkier, I was not gonna go for. But the idea is you put your med kit, you protect it behind your plate, that way it stays intact. You go ahead and it's ambidextrous, it's right up front. You just reach down to the bottom of the plate carrier and you yank it out. It's flat, it's in a nice pressure sealed bag, and take it from there. You ever use one of these?
We started getting them, but I never actually, even ran with it. When I saw it, I was like, hey, that's a good idea. But it would never be just the only thing that you'd have. You'd have your belt kit as well, and then this would be extra that you could put in either the front plate, behind your front plate, just, extra stuff.
Personally, it always kind of weirded me out that at my darkest hour of need, somebody was going to yank my plate carrier open, exposing my plate to fall out as I was being dragged or carried. Just never made sense. Like, I'm already having a bad enough night, probably, maybe daytime.
Yeah, they're probably stripping it off you anyway.
I hope not. I need it. I need it.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I was never a fan of the behind the plate carrier method is I love the lumbar support of the med kit in the small of the back. You couple this with a fresh MRE, like fresh out of the box, firm and ripe MRE, right there in the small of the back, you could drive across the country in full kit. You'd be fine. That's the trick.
Supports that body armor.
Supports the body armor.
Keeps it up.
The mags, the comms, the water. I've always got water.
It's real, man. That fatigue is real.
All right, so that was a brief overview of how we run our med gear and a little bit of the why. It definitely did change. Obviously, the Vietnam conflict had a much, much different area of operation, so they were trying to keep things high and dry. As we moved on through the modern age, it just became a don't lose it, don't damage it until you need it, because there was a lot of lead flying around.
Yeah, and then there wasn't that issue of wetness over there in the desert, normally. But always remember, guys, when you build your med kit and your blowout kit, because you're gonna want to do that, the gear inside, you need to know what it is and how to use it, how to employ it, because it's just dead weight otherwise. All right. And as always, if you like this content, like, subscribe, and leave us some comments.